When I was in 8th grade, my favorite class was my science class. My teacher was incredible and I loved learning new things every day in that class. But then my teacher announced that we were going to be beginning our unit on evolution. Now I've grown up going to church, going to Sunday school every Sunday, reading the Bible, learning about creation as said in Genesis. So I was a little bit nervous and a little bit scared when my teacher said we were going to start talking about evolution. And the thing that really scared me was that all of the information my teacher was giving me made sense. And I didn't understand how something like evolution could be true, and I could still believe in God. So I've been struggling with this idea for the past few years, and I'm sure I'm not the only one to have dealt with this. Some of you might be struggling with the same thing now. So during this speech, I hope to show you that evolution and creation can exist together, and that you don't have to pick one over the other. So first, let's talk about evolution. Many Christians take the viewpoint of the creationist, which is just the idea that God created the world as stated in Genesis. They believe that evolution is just a theory and has no actual basis. Many creationists cite the watchmaker analogy, which was proposed by William Paley. Basically, what this analogy says is that if you're walking along a beach and you see a watch sitting in the sand, you know that it didn't just appear there. In other words, if there's a watch, there has to be a watchmaker. Creationists take this analogy and use it to mean that if there's an earth, that means there has to have been a creator. Many also claim that evolution is just a theory, and that while microevolution, small gradual changes in an organism, might happen, macroevolution, the development of new species, does not. However, if you look at the scientific evidence, the evidence for evolution is overwhelming, especially looking at the fossil record and DNA. Many creationists say that the fossil record is not good proof of evolution because there are so few fossils found. They actually cite this as a reason that creation is true, because if there are not very many fossils, that means that the Earth really isn't that old. However, fossils only appear under very specific circumstances in certain types of rocks, and they can't have decayed or broken down beforehand. Scientists can also use a technique called radiometric dating to figure out how old these fossils are. Elements in rocks decay at different rates, and scientists can look at these elements and see how decayed they are to determine how old the rocks are. And the age of the rock equals the age of the fossil inside the rock. So using radiometric dating, scientists have determined that until about 550 million years ago, only single-celled organisms appear in the fossil record. Then around 65 million years ago, the asteroid hit and the dinosaurs went extinct and mammals started to appear on land. We can also look at DNA records to see the evidence for evolution. The Human Genome Project was led by Francis Collins, figured out the entire genome of humans. And looking at this data, we can now compare human DNA to the DNA of other organisms. For example, if you take any random segment of human DNA and compare it to DNA in the same location in a chimpanzee, you have a 98% chance of finding an exact match. The other thing that I wish to address is this idea of evolution being just a theory. Now, when many use the word theory, they assume that it's just like a hypothesis, that it's just something that a couple of scientists sat around and were like, oh, maybe evolution is a thing. But in actuality, a theory is defined as a consistent set of observations that leads to a new framework of understanding. A theory isn't something that someone just comes up with. It's been supported by years and years of observation and experiment. So if evolution is true, what does that mean for Christianity? Many believe that evolution is in direct contrast with belief, that if God called his creation very good, then why does it need to change? And if the Bible describes creation as happening over the span of 6 days, then is the Bible false? However, I propose that evolution can be true without contradicting God, that evolution could be the mechanism by which God created the world. Francis Collins, who I mentioned as the founder of the Human Genome Project, said that if God is outside nature, he can also be outside space and time. In other words, God could have created the world knowing the outcome and chosen evolution as the driving force for creation. It seems to us to be a completely random process, but it could actually have been controlled since the beginning. And while supernatural intervention might not have been required for the evolution of new species, God clearly intervened to make human beings unique. Our ability for conscious thought, our creativity, our knowledge of right and wrong, these show evidence of a divine creator. The Bible is not intended as a science textbook. God didn't inspire the Bible to tell us exactly how things happened. He inspired the Bible to tell us more about who He is. The Bible can answer questions that science has never been meant to answer. Questions like, why are we here, and what happens to us after we die? So in conclusion, many believe that there is a choice between science and faith, that to believe in one is to contradict the other. But I believe that these two ideas can exist in harmony and that you don't have to choose. And to quote one more time from Francis Collins, the God of the Bible is also the God of the genome.